This is every single fight to make after UFC 294, Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2. I have all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers, and you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them, and that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I have hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal those opponents one by one as the video goes on and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Makhachev wins impressively, and not only impressively, the most important part about his victory when it comes to who he's going to be fighting next is he wins easily without taking any damage whatsoever. And this is a guy in Islam Makhachev who, although has said on a few occasions that he wants to be a bit more active, it hasn't ended up working out for him. You know, I mean, we see him February, October. February, October is kind of how we're seeing Islam Makhachev so far. So, we've got a gift. Even though it was hurtful, and it did hurt to see Volkanovski lose in the way that he did, we've got a chance to see an active Makhachev. And I want to see him against Justin Gaethje. That's what I want to see. And I want to see him versus Justin Gaethje. I'm talking, we could do it in January. You know what I mean? January, February, March, one of those early 3 months of the year. I'm absolutely down for that. I think that'd be perfect. I think that'd be an absolutely perfect world. Let's not do the Oliveira fight. I know Dana White said, Oliveira's up next. Come on, man. No, he's not up next. He got dominated by Makhachev. Can we see a contender? I know he's a big name. I feel like the UFC is just doing stuff like, let's just chuck a bunch of big fights together. They don't even care anymore. They're just making whatever big fights they can because their ESPN deal is coming up and they want to make as many big fights as they can so they have a higher chance of re-signing with ESPN. But either way, come on. No Oliveira yet. Let's do Oliveira Gamrot in January in Canada. Oliveira last fought in Canada and got an amazing win. Let's have him go back there again now that he has a fan base for himself there. And let's do Islam Makhachev versus Justin Gaethje in February, in March, something along those lines. I want to see Oliveira win 2 in a row, and then I'll be hyped for a potential rematch between him and Makhachev. Until then, I want to see a fresh opponent. Now, I wouldn't have minded it. I didn't mind it when it was first booked, to be honest with you. When Oliveira first got that chance at his rematch, I didn't mind it. But now we've seen Volkanovski Makhachev 2. It's just going to be Makhachev Oliveira, Makhachev Volkanovski, Makhachev Volkanovski 2, Makhachev Oliveira 2. And it's just like, I feel like, isn't that kind of fake legacy? You're just doubling up on people we already know you can beat. It kind of gets annoying. Like, I think legacy is better when you do it against different opponents and different styles. And I think Gaethje is way more intriguing of a matchup because he's looking better than ever. He beat Fiziev, which I didn't think he was going to do, and I think a lot of people were doubting that he could do. Showed his improvement there. Showed he was willing to wrestle in the third round of that as well. And just beat Poirier with a brutal head kick KO. Got the BMF belt. Makhachev versus Gaethje. February pay-per-view. Make it happen. Or a March pay-per-view card. Maybe March. Do that in the US. Somewhere, Vegas, wherever they want to do it. That's the matchup I want to see. And after that, we can talk about Oliveira's rematch. But let's do Oliveira versus Gamrot. We're already doing Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan. The winner of Dariush to Tsarukyan isn't guaranteed a title shot, by the way. Just going to be honest. Isn't guaranteed a title shot. And then if McGregor beats Chandler, if Oliveira takes a fight in the meantime, we could be looking in a world where if Makhachev beats Gaethje and moves up to fight the winner of Covington Edwards, or just moves up in general and fights whoever's the champion at that time, if Bilal gets his shot in the meantime, hopefully not, we could see like Conor McGregor, if he beats Chandler, versus Charles Oliveira. You know what I mean? That would be amazing. So let's do Makhachev Gaethje for now, and hopefully the rest of those things I just said fall into place. We move on. Alexander Volkanovski. Why did he do it, dude? Why did he take that fight? What an absolute Chad, but it just shouldn't have been done. And we knew it shouldn't have been done. And there were some Volkanovski fans out there that were saying things like, Volkanovski, he's going to win this rematch against Makhachev. And I get that, but they were kind of coping, and everyone kind of knew that they were coping. I picked Makhachev by KO. I'm sad that it happened. I'm also sad that Volkanovski wants to fight Ilia Topuria in January. Now, I think that's the next fight to make. There was a part of me that was thinking, let's do Poirier versus Volk. And I'm like, nah, let's not do that. Let's do Poirier versus the winner of Dariush Arman Sarukian. That sounds good. You know what I mean? And then we do the winner of Oliveira Gamrot versus the winner of McGregor Chandler. If it's McGregor, if it's Chandler, who cares? And then we do Gaethje versus Makhachev. That's my plan for the lightweight division. And Volk don't fit into that plan. I want to see him fight Ilia Topuria, but if he fights him in January, I'm probably going to pick Ilia Topuria. Do not return less than 3 months after you just got head kick KO'd badly. I don't want to see it. I know you want to be active, and I know you're having problems, and your mindset's all wrong. This is the perfect time to be at peace with not fighting. Christmas is up. You know what I mean? New Year's is up. Have Christmas and New Year's, and as soon as that's over, get straight back into training camp and fight in February earliest. I don't want to see you fight in January, dude. At least give it 4 months. So let's say February, maybe March, probably March. Whenever they aren't doing Makhachev Gaethje, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to have Makhachev and Volk on the same pay-per-view, because you're going to be using Makhachev's promotion of him KOing Volk on the same card that you're trying to promote Volk in his own title fight, and it's just going to feel diminished. So I want to do Volkanovski Topuria in March, February, whenever you don't do Makhachev versus Gaethje, I think would be the move. Maybe they go to Australia in March. I know they normally do it in February, but maybe we delay it to March this next year, and do Makhachev Topuria there and do Volkanovski Topuria there while Makhachev fights Gaethje in February. That's an ideal world, in my opinion, an absolutely ideal world. And I also think that maybe if they do want to do it around the same time anyway, and Volk does want to come back, not in January, not allowed. I don't mind this being like a UFC Fight Night Madrid. Topuria's Spanish. I know he's Georgian originally, but he's lived in Spain since he was young, and he's grown up in Spain, and he speaks Spanish. And he has a massive Spanish audience. I think there was a famous football player that was in his crowd when he fought Josh Emmett as well, that was a Spanish football player. So he's got an audience and he's got the following. And if Volk wants to feel like the underdog and really hype himself up for that Topuria matchup, let's finally do a UFC Fight Night Madrid with like Joel Alvarez versus a decent lightweight on the card as well, and maybe sign some other prospects from the region. Who knows what they're going to do, but I think that's the move to make. Spanish speakers on the card would work. Any of that works. We move on. Khamzat Chimaev beat Kamaru Usman, or did he? It was kind of a draw though, wasn't it, really? If we're being honest with ourselves here. But still, Chimaev won. I don't think he's earned a title shot in the middleweight division. Strickland don't think he's earned a title shot in the middleweight division. Khamzat Chimaev's broken arm, or wrist, or hand, whatever he did, isn't ready for a title shot in the middleweight division. I don't want to see Sean Strickland out until April or May, until Khamzat Chimaev's hand is healed up. Someone who does need some time off in the middleweight division. I'm not just doing this because I don't like him. Israel Adesanya's looking for some time off. And I think that works out perfectly for the middleweight division, to be honest with you, because that way you can do Whittaker versus the winner of Cannonier Delidze. You do Khamzat Chimaev, Israel Adesanya, and you do Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. That's the move to make in the middleweight division, 100%. Paulo Costa can fight an up-and-comer, the winner of Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig, which I think is a decent matchup for him, by the way. That would be good for him. So I think they should do Khamzat Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya in the middleweight division. I think it makes sense. Just timing-wise, right? You got Khamzat Chimaev, huge name, wants some time off because he just got injured. He's probably not going to be good if he has got a hand injury or a wrist injury, which is a broken bone or something like that. He's probably not going to be training again until the end of this year, early next year, 2024, late 2023, 8 weeks from now, as soon as he gets surgery. So Israel Adesanya might be looking to come back around the same time. And I think a perfect comeback date would be, if they're going to do McGregor versus Chandler in April, Khamzat Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya in April in the co-main event of UFC 300. Need I say more? I don't need to say any more. That's what you do. And that's final. Thank you very much. Main event, McGregor versus Chandler, UFC 300, no belt on the line. You need huge matchups with no belt on the line. Khamzat Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya is a massive matchup that would do massive pay-per-view numbers and is the perfect co-main event to UFC 300's McGregor versus Chandler. I think that would be absolutely perfect. And if Strickland defends his belt in March, or Duplessis wins the belt in March, it lines up the winners against each other. And then we also have time to book Whittaker versus the winner of Cannonier Delizzi for the title contender after that, potentially. We'll see. Whittaker might have to win 2 in a row now, but we'll see who's the champion, I guess. But that's what I want to do. And I think it's a great matchup, not just because I think Chimaev would ragdoll Israel Adesanya, but I think it'd be a huge, huge mega fight, co-main event of UFC 300. Might even outshine the main event itself, let's be honest. We move on. Kamaru Usman lost in the co-main event, but gave a really good account of himself on a week and a half's notice. It left me thinking to myself, you know what? If Usman has a full camp, he probably gets the draw officially by making the last 2 rounds a bit clearer, or wins it for himself. You know what I mean? If Chimaev goes through that injury again, who knows what would happen without the injury I now know of. But Kamaru Usman didn't really take too much damage. He took some shots in the first round, but it's not like he got KO'd. It's not like he went through a massive war. The second and third round were pretty slow-paced, and he won them minorly, in my opinion. It's not like he got damaged too much. You know what I mean? He got some hits in the first round, but not crazy 10-8. Oh my God, how is he surviving this type damage? But it was a 10-8 round, I guess. So let's just do Kamaru Usman versus, in the welterweight division again, the winner of Jack Della Maddalena versus Jeff Neal. I'm only bringing Jack Della Maddalena's name out. I don't know who I would pick in that matchup. I would lean towards JDM in an all-striking matchup against Jeff Neal. I just think he's really, really good on the feet. And if you're in his range in the pocket, you're not going to beat him. I think that's why Holland gave him problems. And if you're not going to shoot a takedown, you're not going to beat him. But if I was Kamaru Usman, hear me out. If I was Kamaru Usman, and I was looking at the welterweight division, and I was thinking to myself, well, I'm not fighting Bilal. Bilal's probably not going to take that fight. He's probably going to wait for a title shot right now. I'm not going to fight the winner of Shavkat Wonderboy, unless it's Wonderboy. Maybe that's a world that could happen, but I don't see it happening. Usman, I think, needs a striker that don't want to be taken down. You know what I mean? I think that would be good for him. And for JDM, if he does get past Jeff Neal, because Brady's got a matchup coming up, Luke's fighting Ian Gary in December, and JDM didn't take damage against Holland. It was pretty clear, smooth sailing wins for him against Kevin Holland. And he didn't really take any damage against Hafez either, outside of a couple of shots. I reckon Usman can make a bit of a quick turnaround in February, in a fight night main event maybe, or in a pay-per-view main card spot against JDM. And maybe you could do it, if Trevor Whitman likes to do this, which he normally does, on like the same pay-per-view main card as Makhachev versus Gaethje's headliner. Maybe it could be the feature fight. Maybe it could be Jeff Neal on the other end of this as well. But I think JDM would just be a matchup that Usman would think, he just got into the top 10. I didn't like his performance against Hafez. I thought it was a pretty bad performance. I'll take that fight. You know what I mean? I think that's something that Usman will see. If JDM gets past Jeff Neal, Usman will be like, yeah, that's a matchup. I can get a win. I can get some momentum back. And I can start looking towards big fights again. I think he needs a reset. He's lost 3 in a row, even if he did take this on short notice. I was originally thinking, let's do Whittaker Usman, but I'm like, no, don't make no sense. I think Whittaker will be back sometime soon, but maybe it does make sense. But still, I think he should go back to welterweight. I don't think he's a middleweight. We move on up the card. And if Covington beats Edwards, he's 100% going back down to 170 because they're going to be a lot more lenient of giving him a title shot. And I think even Covington would be like, yeah, let's run the trilogy because I've lost twice. Magomed Ankalaev should have been DQ'd against Johnny Walker, and I stand by that. Should have absolutely been DQ'd against Johnny Walker. He kneed him in the face, and whatever you think about the referee or the doctor's decision, the doctor deemed him not fit to continue after an illegal knee to the face. How is that a no contest? Piotr Jan should be the current bantamweight champion. This is I don't like the rule, but at least be consistent about it. That's how I feel. Magomed Ankalaev, Johnny Walker rematch. Walker didn't really take any damage off that knee. And if they don't want to cut the weight, I would love this on the main card of UFC 295 because I feel like, I don't know if anyone feels the same, I feel like they've abandoned that card. And this would be a nice addition to it. And then you would have a backup in Ankalaev and a reason for Ankalaev to take the fight again. By saying, Ankalaev, if anything happens in the co-main event between Pereira and Yuri, you're up. That would be a great incentive to try and get Ankalaev back in there against Walker on a reasonably quick turnaround so as not to waste any time for him. And I think that's what they should do. November, 3 weeks from now, maybe it'd be a bit rough for them to be asked to do another weight cut. Maybe it happens at catch weight, but you kind of want them as a backup opponent. So I think you just ask him, make weight again in 3 weeks. It's not like it's back-to-back weeks. Stay on weight, stay in shape. We're rebooking this on the main card of UFC 295. And if anything, this fight just got a lot more popular. So I'm going to go with that, I think. Or if they can't make weight that soon, or Walker can't make weight that soon, let's be honest, that's who it is that's going to struggle with that. You book it for the main event of the China card in December. Works. There's no main event of that right now. Yan's injured. Song Yudong don't have a dance partner. Give Song Yudong a lower down ranked guy in the co-main event and do Ankalaev Walker in the main event. 4-5 rounds. And then just say to Ankalaev, you're fighting Walker, but if we need you for the November card, be ready to make weight. And you can be moved over and we'll find someone else for Walker instead, like Krylov in a rematch. Ankalaev Walker 2, China main event, or UFC 295 main card. Ikram Aliskerov. Amazing win against Wally Alves. Really clean win. TKO. I've got to speed through this. This is taking ages. Nasruddin Imavov rebooking. Pretty simple explanation for this. I was thinking of doing like a Bo Nickal matchup or something else along those lines, but I just don't think that's what the UFC is going to do. I don't think the UFC gives Bo Nickal to Ikram Aliskerov or Ikram to Bo Nickal right now. I think they're going to wait to make that matchup in the future. So Ikram Aliskerov, Dana even said he's getting a ranked opponent next. Nasruddin Imavov, he didn't pull out with an injury. He had visa issues. So he's ready to go. And Ikram got a short notice can in Wale Alves pretty much. He was not ready for fighting whatsoever from welterweight on short notice and beat him easily with no damage taken. So let's just rebook it. It's not like Ikram cuts too much weight. We can do this on the China co-main event of the China card. Let's just do these fights. Let's get these fights done. December, January. When you see quick finishes and people pulling out from visa issues that can be fixed in a month or so, rebook them a little bit later and start saving some of these cards later this year or early next year that aren't looking too hot. Ikram Aliskerov, Nasruddin Imavov. We move on. Saeed Namagomedov. Easy win. Have a quick turnaround here. Easily beat Gafarov. Guillotine in the first round. Took 0 damage. Javid Basharat, groin-shotted Victor Henry. Going to be looking for a fight at some point soon. He's ready for a fight. He didn't even get a win bonus. It kind of got robbed from him in a way because it's not really his fault. It was an accident. I'm sure he's going to have the mindset of, get me back in there. I'm staying in training camp. Who wants it right now? Saeed Namagomedov versus Javid Basharat. And the problem at bantamweight is these guys are so good, they don't want to take on people that are outside the rankings. So I think you should say, hey, Saeed, Javid, the winner of this is probably going to be number 14 or 15 in the rankings. Take this fight and you'll probably get a ranked opponent next. Saeed versus Javid. On that China card as well, on the main card, I think that'd be a good fight. Rest in peace, Victor Henry's nuts. Mohamed Makhachev. Won in the third round against Tim Elliott. Didn't really take too much damage, so I don't think he's going to be out for too long. And I want to see him stay a little bit more active, but there should be some time out. He's young. And he was struggling against Tim Elliott, and he's always been struggling against all of his opponents until pulling it off miraculously in the third round. Respect to him for that. But still, I think he needs to take some time, evolve. Not too much, though. Bring him back in March on the pay-per-view prelims of a card. Maybe that has Makhachev as the main event against Gaethje. Who knows? Put him on the prelims again, this time against the only flyweight that makes sense. We've got Moreno versus Amir Albazi. We got Manel Cap versus Kai Kara France. That's got to happen. Who cares about Alex Perez? Figueiredo's moving up. It's Mateus Nickal, coming off a loss to Brandon Royval, who's fighting for the title against Pantoja soon. Mateus Nickal's the fight. It's the only fight, and he will fight Makhachev, because I think he does see that Makhachev... I think a lot of these top guys are going to have their way with Makhachev. My honest opinion. He just doesn't look like he's top level. So I'm going to go with Mateus Nickal versus, Mohamed Makhachev. I think that's the matchup to make at flyweight. It's the only one that makes sense. We move on. Shara Magomedov. I've got a perfect matchup for him. And that matchup is against Bo Nickal. Ginger on ginger. And I don't endorse ginger on ginger violence. I don't. I think we need to move on from this as brothers. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's just in the beard, like Shadoputin's. But still, we need to make it happen. Shadoputin Magomedov, Bo Nickal. You want to know why? As much as people are going to be angry at Bo Nickal for he doesn't want to fight Ikram, he's ducking Ikram Aliskerov. Dude, Bo Nickal's like, what, 5-0, 6-0? He don't have much experience. And if there's any jump up Bo Nickal is going to take, it will be against Shadoputin Magomedov, who just beat Bruno Silva, by the way, who is good. I think he just beat Brad Tavares. Before that, you know, he had the fight with Pereira, and he had another fight with GM3. It's the legend of GM3, of course. What are you going to do about that? Maybe you do, just do Shadoputin Magomedov versus Bo Nickal. I think it's the fight to make, because I think Bo Nickal will take the fight. I'd love to make just fantasy matchups that are like, I'd love this in an ideal world. Let's do Usman Whitaker. But then I'm also on the feeling like, what will happen? You know what I mean? What is realistic to happen here? I don't want to just make a bunch of fun fights that are never going to happen. I want to try and predict what the UFC is thinking as well. And I think the UFC thinks to themselves, the winner of Shadoputin Bo Nickal can be, first of all, the fight can be on the main card of a pay-per-view if it's not that strong. Or the headliner of the prelims of a pay-per-view. Second of all, the winner's going to be a superstar because Shadoputin Magomedov got crazy interactions on social media because of the way he looks. And Bo Nickal probably beats him. After watching Bruno Silva double leg Shadoputin Magomedov easily and hold him down for the rest of the round, if I'm Bo Nickal and I'm looking at any step up at middleweight, I'm seeing undefeated, scary looking Dagestani dude, can't wrestle for anything. And I'm thinking Bo Nickal's going to put his name in the hat and say, UFC, me versus Shadoputin Magomedov, February, March pay-per-view. Make it happen. See you later, guys. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. Goodbye.